Reframing a problem or looking at it in different ways can help us find better solutions. Welcome to this episode of ReFrame, a live series for women in wealth management and allies by the women of Carson that dives into how we can reframe our thinking on different issues in the industry. I'm this month's host, Ana Trujillo Limon, Director of Coaching and Advisor Content at Carson, and today I'm super excited to chat with industry mentorship expert Kellan Brown on how to develop successful mentorship programs and squash the Queen Bee Syndrome. Welcome to ReFrame, Kellan, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anna. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're going to have fun today. But to kick us off, tell us a little bit about your journey into the industry and how you became an authority on mentoring.
I'd love to. So it kind of began with COVID, believe it or not. I've been a part of a number of different industries, and COVID hit. I was the chief revenue officer at a company that I'd been with for 8.5 years. And this really speaks to mentorship and allyship. I sent an email out to a group of 15 women, people that have been huge supporters of me, really my circle of influence. And I let them know the situation I was in. I had a daughter that was 7. No, I had a daughter that was 2.5. She's 7 now. And then a daughter that was 9 months old. And I knew I had to make a change because I couldn't be on site anymore. We were constantly dealing with the repercussions of being home, and my husband's a first responder, so he had to be out in the field. And the woman that responded first was Kristen Seifert, president of Finance of America. And she gave me an opportunity that changed my life. Not just because it was about getting into financial services, but it gave me the opportunity to be there for my kids, to be there for my family, and make sure my husband was moving forward as well. So that's actually what brought me into the industry. And I've only been in it for 5 years. And that's one thing I will say. For those of you that are looking to move into a different industry, make sure to capitalize on what you know. So I really leaned into leadership and mentorship, and knew that I wanted to make change no matter where I landed. And financial services was truly it.
I love that story. So great. Yeah, I'm always a fan of, it's never too late to make a change, right? So if you're feeling it's that time. But
I love it.
So last month I had on Amanda Bearden, who is one of your mentees actually. So let's talk about some of your tips for having a successful mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah, so Amanda's incredibly special. I know she's a part of your partner development program, your PDP program. I'd love to give a shout out to Carson, because this doesn't exist in many RIAs. And Anna, what Carson is doing to foster these new advisors, want to be advisors that are coming into the industry, giving them access to that is so powerful. It truly, truly speaks to what we're trying to do at FinServe as well. So I loved this. And Dr. Julie Ragatz, who runs that program, had called me and said, hey, Kellan, I have an unbelievable stakeholder at Carson that's in this program, and she needs a little bit of help. And so I learned a little bit about her, jumped on our first call, and I could see that she was just trying to figure out who she wanted to be, right? That's what it really was. It actually was not about, am I capable of doing the job? Do I know how to be an advisor? Can I pass these tests? I knew she could do all of that. It was really, let's figure out what she wants out of life and what she's trying to pay forward. And that's what we spent a year working on. For those of you that know the industry well, Amanda Bearden just passed her CFP. That is incredibly challenging, and she did it on her first try. We spent so much time just putting her in a mindset that was prepared for something like that. And while I can sit here with my experience and give her those tools to do that, I'm a huge believer in allyship and introductions. And we made sure she had the right tools. We made sure that she was talking to all the right people that have gone through this process before. And it was really just making sure that everything is out on the table. If I do not pass this exam, at least I gave everything that I had. And we just built her up one step at a time.
I love that. So you brought up something really important there. And we had did a prep call for this live stream today, but in that prep call, we talked a little bit about mentorship and sponsorship and the difference between it. But you said something really profound. If you're mentoring people and you're not willing to put your relational capital on the line, then what's the point, right? You should. So you were willing to put your relational capital on the line, make introductions to Amanda, for Amanda, all of that stuff. So tell me a little bit about that, notion of you should be mentoring people you're willing to put your relational capital on the line for.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question, Anna. Okay, so let's define what mentorship is and let's define what sponsorship is. And I'll do this very clearly. Mentorship provides feedback and advice to help them position themselves for the next step in their career. So you're giving them the tools to be successful in mentoring. Sponsorship actively advocates for their career advancement. So I'm going to give you an example. When you and I had this prep call, I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, do I have a sponsor? Have I ever had a sponsor in my life, that didn't mentor me before? And I absolutely did. And it was this year. Larry ReFrame, the chairman of the board for Edelman Financial Engines, I met once. This is one of like the biggest players in our industry. And he introduced me to all of his female leaders. I mean, it was the greatest opportunity for me. And he didn't have any weight or didn't know anything about me. What an incredible, incredible introduction opportunity. He just saw something in me that he believed was more powerful. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have the clout that Larry has to be able to do that just yet. So when I see people coming into a mentorship relationship and I feel that connection, I of course want to see them be successful because I want them to succeed. As a mom of 2 girls, I want to give them the tools to be able to stand up, right? But I also want to give them the world. So I don't believe that mentorships should exist without having that sponsorship.
That's such a valid point. And so, I think I heard you speak at a few different investment news women advisor summits. And both of those presentations, you brought up, that you have developed mentorship programs in several different organizations you've worked at across different sectors. And, the mentorship program you developed recently won 2 international awards. So congratulations on that. That's super exciting. And so, in our research, we found that mentorship is critically important for people. And, sometimes people are listening to this, they run firms and they might want to develop a mentorship program. What are some of your, tips or advice to start a successful mentorship program in a firm?
Okay, so there's a number of variables that come into play here. One is how many people do you have supporting the initiative? And do you have a committee or a group of people that are willing to back that? For those of us that are on Max, my text messages just popped up, and one of my committee members for Finance of America, Rachel, she shot me a text just saying, good luck today on the podcast. Like, so excited to talk about mentorship.
Hi, Rachel.
I know. Shout out to Rachel if you're listening. She was one of those huge, huge believers in this program. Mm-hmm. And what we did was create a committee of 5 of us. We were all spread across the organization, and we had one major champion that was sitting equal to our president. So you really need to have the buy-in, but then you also have to have a clear path and plan. So for anyone that's listening, I'm going to have my contact information in here where you can reach out to me if you want to explore what those options are, because this could take a while to go through. But there is another way to do it. There's a way to align with organizations that already have a mentorship program where you might be able to potentially put your people through that. If you're a smaller RIA or a smaller organization, think about working with the CFP board. Think about working with WIFS, that's specific to women. I sit with the FinServe Foundation. We just partnered up with the FPA Next Gen team, and we are launching a partnership where we are putting through their Next Gen team through our mentorship program because they only have a 2-year term for their board. And so we just wanted to create something lasting for them. And then lastly, 100 Women in Finance. This organization is unbelievable. For all of the women coming out of financial planning programs, take a look at 100 WF. They have a really empowering program run by Debbie Bingman, who's becoming a dear friend of mine now. And I'm very, very proud of what's coming out of the industry with mentorship.
No, that's great advice too. So, people don't have the resources to start their own mentorship program. Like, these are all great options to get involved in mentoring the next gen in our profession. And for me, I like to mentor outside of the industry too. So like I'm a mentor with FinServe Foundation, which is super fun. And then I'm also a mentor for the Latinas First Foundation, which is based here in Denver.
Yes.
And a lot of the tools, so your program is very well organized and structured, and you have like, specific milestones for different, here are some things to do with your first meeting with your mentor. So I use a lot of that stuff with the Latinas First Foundation. Like, okay, I'm going to set some goals with my mentee. We're going to talk about certain things. So thank you for that, because it's helped me when I'm mentoring with more unstructured programs. So that's very exciting. So we're going to shift a little bit. The very first time I met you.
Anna, can I jump in there real quick? Can I say something about this? Because this is the greatest comment I can hear. I always say to people, if you are mentoring, have a mentor, right? Why? Because you learn so much from that mentor that you get to pass down. The fact that you're taking the content and using it to impact other people, like that, it's crazy, but I have chills over that. Like, that is what works, right? And you never give yourself enough credit. Anna has been a part of 2 of our cohorts for FinServe. She started her own foundation. I'm so proud of what you have done for this industry, and thank you for your time.
Kellan, thank you for that. That's beautiful. But I have another great story for you. So for the Latino Advisor Summit this year, our theme is building generational wealth and wisdom. And so one of our like fireside chats is with, we're doing generational mentorship. So we're having a woman named Janet Larson, Diana Yanez, and then Alexia Gomez, who's actually with the FinServe Foundation. So Diana is Alexia's mentor. So we're doing like this, the impact of mentorship through the generations is really neat. You become a mentor, or you are mentored, and you're inspired by your mentor to go on and give back and pay it forward. So that's really exciting. I just wanted to share that with you, because
I love that.
Impactful.
Thank you for recognizing it too, Anna. And it's all through FinServe, which obviously I'm thrilled to recognize. So
cool. For sure. Yeah. So mentoring, get involved in all of the different organizations we have in the industry. We have a lot of great organizations doing great work. So definitely give back if you can. And if you're a young professional, seeking out a mentor is really critical, as we found in our 2023 State of Women in Wealth Management research. So to shift gears a little bit, to talk about the Queen Bee syndrome, right? So also I've heard you talk a lot about this in your talks throughout the industry about, your early career, coming on as a branding professional out of school, experiencing the Queen Bee syndrome kind of firsthand. And to preface this, I would like to tell the story when we first met at an FPA retreat. I think it was like 2.5 years ago, something like that. And we had never met. We didn't know each other. And right away, you're just like, oh, come to this dinner. And who can I introduce you to? And how can I help you? And it was just like this obvious abundance mindset that you had that was very contagious. Like, oh man, I want to be more like Kellan, and just abundance mindset. But Dr. Julie talks about how the Queen Bee syndrome is rooted in scarcity, right? So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how you've worked to create environments where women are experiencing, not experiencing the Queen Bee syndrome, and are comfortable and have that abundance mindset. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so what was interesting is when I came out of college and I was ready to take over the world, right? I wanted to make impact. I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to grow. I ended up working for a female, and I didn't even know it was happening with this whole Queen Bee concept. There wasn't even a title to it at the time, but she needed to be more seen. She needed to belittle me. She had, there were just like behaviors that I wasn't even understanding what was going on, because it was my first boss. I was in the sports marketing industry at the time, very combative to a degree. And it was my sister that actually had heard us on a call. And she said, is this how you're typically treated? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, and she was like, that's not right. And so like, I started listening and hearing what she was explaining to me. And I gave myself a time frame and said, I'm going to stay until then. If I have a job or I don't, I'm still going to leave. And I realized in that moment that either you have 2 paths you can take. One, you can mirror the behavior that you're learning, which would be what she was exhibiting, or I can take a path and try and change the world so women never feel this way in the work environment, and want to empower them and grow and ultimately surpass what I have taught them. So that's what I did. And that's where mentorship came into play. And my goal was not to figure out the perfect job. It was to figure out the perfect leader. And that's when I ended up moving over to a company with a gentleman named Brett Musgrove. And he stayed with me for 8.5 years. He taught me so much. about mentorship and how important that was, and gave me the tools to be successful. And then that's when I moved over to Finance of America, and I took everything that we had built and learned and fostered in that industry for women and for empowerment, and moved it over to financial services. And I just said, I don't care where I land. I want everyone to feel that inclusion. And if you are able to show that experience that you had, Anna, that we had together, and I'll tell you why I did that with you too. But if you're able to show that, people want to do it as well, right? You don't have to be that queen bee. Like, be bigger than that. And when I met you, Anna, there's something about people that have this aura of lightness and want to be a part of the change. And I saw that in you in seconds. And that's why I wanted to bring you in and find a way to be friends and help each other and grow together. And that's where that all stems from.
That's beautiful. And that was like, that's what those types of interactions, I think, are what we need more of. And the abundance mindset is definitely something we need more of in the industry, because as your story kind of illustrates, like experiencing the queen bee syndrome, you're not even in that industry anymore, right? You're not in that industry anymore. And so that's kind of what we try to highlight in the Women in Wealth Management report, is that, these things are detrimental to retaining the women we do attract to the industry, and also detrimental to being able to attract more women to the industry. So exactly. Valid points. I love it. So, we're starting to sit down and design our 2024 State of Women in Wealth Management survey. And what are some things that you think we should be looking into incorporating in terms of questions, things we should look into, both for mentorship and the queen bee syndrome?
Okay, so Anna, have you read Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates yet?
Not yet.
Her woman. Okay, put it on the list. It's it's new, so it's fresh. So everyone that's reading like 10 books at a time, just add it to your list. I wrote down this quote when I was talking to another organization that was looking to build a mentorship program specific to women. And she wrote, if you want to make change in women empowerment, help women protect their children. And so I was sitting in that and I'm like, okay, what did Melinda mean by this? And she works mainly in the nonprofit sector and third world countries. And what does that mean? And for them, it was really more about how can we let them choose when they're ready to have children, right? Give them the ability to start building businesses or families where they just weren't in control of what the husband wanted at that point, right? In our world, where we're so fortunate in America, I was like, how do I translate this to now, right? If we're trying to keep people in financial services and bring them to the executive level and give them the tools to be able to do that, and it's really in the mindset of if they're protecting the children, what does that look like? I would love to know the larger organizations, firms, companies, institutions, how many of them actually provide childcare? I'd be really interested how many provide some type of program that actually supports the children of the women and men that are trying to raise up, and give them the opportunity to know that they're protected so that they can continue and be successful in their career. I will give you an example where I actually thought about, I was gifted this. Brett Musgrove, that gentleman I was talking about, he wanted to make sure I was going to stay with his firm. Like, his goal was like, okay, what can I do to help support Kellan? He paid for our childcare pre-K school for 2 years. It was amazing. I couldn't believe someone was willing to do that, but it made me loyal. It made me want to stay in the industry. It made me want to be successful. So I'd love to know that. I'd be very interested.
That is so interesting. And yes, well, thank you for that, Kellan. I think that's a really great place to wind down. Thank you so much for joining me today, making time for ReFrame. I appreciate it. It's always such a joy to talk to you.
You too, Anna. Thank you so much for having me.
Love it. And thank the rest of you for tuning into this episode of ReFrame. Tune in again next month as we continue to reframe our thinking on attracting and retaining women in wealth management.